Well, good afternoon, my fellow viewers, in which this is Josh RV96, as you know, by JRV96, providing you what is to be the very first stream of my streaming hobby and the very first stream made for Flight Simulator 2020 under my name. So, in today's flight, we're basically going to do a New York Skyline route in which we're going to take off from Westchester County Airport and we'll fly down to Farmingdale via the New York Skyline route. And basically, the way how this is going to work is I'm going to give you a brief overview of how to fly the Hudson River Tour as if you were doing it in real life. We'll also take a chance to glance at the breathtaking scenery that the simulator has to offer, and then along the way we'll just fly into Farmingdale, in which the stream should take about, I would say, about an hour to an hour 20 minutes. So what you're looking at right here is Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. As you can see, this is the newest simulator that has recently came out back in August 17th. First sim title that Microsoft has made in 14 years, ever since the release of Flight Simulator X. I've been playing it recently. I have nothing but good things to say about the simulator in terms of the graphics, and then also there's some bugs that need to be ironed out, but eventually they will get the hang of it. And as you know, it's a brand new simulator. Let's give it a chance. So we're going to go ahead and click on the world map, and we're going to be flying the Cessna 172. So as you can see, these are the list of planes that they have for Flight Simulator 2020 for those of you who are new to the simulator. And as you can see, the amount of planes that they have is heavily skewed towards general aviation planes, in which I say this simulator is great when it comes to VFR flying. And then you also have some jets as well, even though not too many compared to what you would get in Prepared, but wide selection of planes that you can choose from throughout the simulator. But we're going to stick with the Cessna 172, in which a couple of things that I'm going to change. For example, weight and balance. Might as well put 26 gallons. So that way we load the airplane to maximum capacity. And since this is going to be a solo flight, you might as well remove the co-pilot from the plane. So let me get rid of that. And then ATC options. So here, this is where you can change the tail number so that way it doesn't say Alpha Sierra X-Ray. You could put it as a real life tail number, as you would see right there, 323 Juliet Romeo, for example. So now, in this case, we're going to zoom into the map and we're going to depart out of Westchester County Airport. So we're going to click here and we're going to select a departing gate, in which we'll choose ramp 25. Now, Flight Sim 2020 gives you an option to create your flight plan if you wanted to, but I don't really need to in that case. And then we're going to utilize real world weather. So as you can see, time now is 4:04, and it's still daytime, as you can see right there. And it's pretty cool to see how which parts of the world is daytime and which part of the world is night right there. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to start at Westchester Airport. So as you can see, trying to find the airport there. So we'll click on ramp 25 and we'll click on set as departure. And basically you got all your frequencies right there and runway. And I say just want to make sure we have live traffic, live real world weather, and we're good to go. So the Cessna 172 is the most produced airplane in the world, which is true. More than 45,000 of these planes were built over the past 60 years. So if you go to any airport in real life, especially any of the small general aviation airport, you will always see a Cessna 172 because it's probably one of the more ubiquitous airplanes you'll see. So as you can see right there, I don't have a face cam yet, which I'm working on that. So I just got to get a webcam for my computer, in which eventually I will have a face cam pretty soon. And as you can see, this is Westchester Airport in this glory in the brand new Flight Simulator 2020. So as you can see, I kind of like how they give you like a live picture of the airport right there, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I actually don't have a full yoke and everything. I utilized a Logitech HOTAS joystick, in which it's a very simple joystick that you can get for about $40, in which basically you have the stick which controls your elevator, your aileron, and your rudder axes, and then you have your throttle controls as well, in which usually if you want to go cheap with your setup, I would recommend getting a stick, or else if you want to go all in, you could get yourself a yoke, rudder pedals, and throttle quadrant as well. But yeah, definitely flying with the keyboard is hard as hell, and it's even worse in the new flight simulator where the controls are extremely sensitive as well. So you're better off getting a stick or a yoke and rudder pedals. So now we're going to go click on ready to fly. Before we go along with the flight, I do want to show you the route that we have on SkyVector. As you can see, I'm utilizing OBS as the software. So basically, this is the route that we're going to be flying on SkyVector right there. So we're going to take off from Westchester Airport, fly direct to the Tappan Zee Bridge, where we will proceed southbound on the Hudson River, where we will do our Hudson River tour. Along the way, we'll pass by the George Washington Bridge. We'll do a circle around over the Statue of Liberty, past the Verrazano Bridge, and then up towards Coney Island, the Rockaways, and then we will finish our flight at Farmingdale. So this is the New York Special Flight Rules area, in which we're gonna go to the, where is this feature on SkyVector? But yeah, basically there is a New York flight chart, which basically gives you an idea. Actually, there it is. This is the one that I'm looking at for. So New York Skyline. So basically, there's two versions of this chart, in which there's two different ways that you can fly the Skyline route. Either you can request a VFR transition route, in which that you would have to communicate with ATC, in which you're going to need Bravo clearance in order for you to do that. So normally right over the Tappan Zee Bridge, you would contact New York Approach, let them know that you want to do the Skyline tour southbound, and usually they'll give you a Bravo clearance. The only time they will not give you a Bravo clearance is, let's say, if LaGuardia is landing on runway 13, which is this runway right there. Then an alternative method to doing the city tour would be to do the Hudson River exclusion route, which is the same route, but you have to be at or below 1,300 feet. And also another difference is that you won't be talking to ATC, but you do have to monitor the Unicom frequency for the Hudson River tour, and then basically self-announce your position over various reference points such as the George Washington Bridge, Intrepid, Statue of Liberty, Verrazano Bridge, and so on and so forth. The way how I'm going to fly this route is I'm going to fly the Hudson River exclusion, in which we're going to be at or below 1,300 feet throughout the whole route. And then eventually, as we get closer, as we pass through the Verrazano Bridge, when we hit the Rockaways, eventually we're going to need to descend at or below 500 feet in order to stay clear of Kennedy's Class Bravo airspace, especially if Kennedy is landing runway 4 left and 4 right, you'll be flying right under their final approach path. And then eventually, when we hit Jones Beach Monument, that's when we're going to climb up to 1,500 feet and then proceed direct to Farmingdale. So, yeah, I should have probably thought about that too, in which, yeah, definitely a little bit about myself. I am a real life flight instructor, commercial pilot guy out of New York, in which I pretty much know the airspace pretty well in that case. So that's something that I should have probably put that title in for myself, but yeah, I got the idea. All right, without further ado, let's get to the flight itself. Now, I say Microsoft did an excellent job making the checklist for the Cessna 172, in which it kind of resembles more so like what you would get from the real airplane. So basically, just making sure you have your aircraft documents and you can tick these items as you go along. It's going to make sure the parking brake is set, in which in that case, this is your parking brake. It is set. So the ignition is off, avionics are off. I'm going to go ahead and turn the master switch on. Let's get rid of that warning message. So the primary flight display is checked on. Fuel quantity, as you can see, we have full fuel on both tanks. And we don't have a low fuel annunciator, so that's good. Oil pressure annunciator is in the green. Low vacuum annunciators check on. We'll test the bus switches. So as you can see, the bus switches are working. So we check these. And then also at the bottom, we're going to turn on the pitot heat switch and turn on all of the associated lights. So that way when we go outside right there, we can check to make sure that the lights are fully working. As you can see right there, there's your nav, strobe lights. You have the beacon light right there and the strobe light on the tail. Actually, it's the nav light on the tail. And then we have the navigation green, strobes, you get the idea. So you want to make sure that all these lights are working out. Yeah, it is. I can actually start at Ross West right there, in which actually this is the FBO that we are currently at right now, in which, yeah, it is amazing how much effort they put in making the game as real as it is right there. And plus, this is only the beginning right there, in which you're going to see that it's only going to get better. But yeah, definitely if you go to the airport information page, like right where you go to the globe, if you zoom in all the way to where the airport is at, it gives you some options as to which parking spot you want to start at as well. In which at first, when I first tried the sim out for the very first time, I did not know this was an option, but then they realized if you zoom in all the way in, there's like a couple of parking spots where you can start right there, which is pretty cool. Now, continuing with the checklist right there, low bolts is on. I'm going to turn off all the lights except for the beacon. Turn the master switch off so that way we don't kill the battery. Then we're going to come down to the pedestal, make sure that the trim is set for takeoff. And as you can see right there, the camera system is something that I'm still trying to get used to. It's not the same camera system as you would get in Prepared or Microsoft Flight Simulator X, but then eventually with more experience I'll get the hang of it. So the trim is set to both, fuel selector valves on both, and the static pressure alternate source valve, we're going to make sure this is pushed in, indicating that this is in the off position. And the pre-flight inspection is complete. Now, in reality, you would have to do what's called the walk around to make sure that the exterior part of the airplane is in good condition. So as you can see, Microsoft did not list that here because it is assumed that, let's pretend that I did the walk around myself. We checked that the control surfaces, basically the elevators, ailerons, rudders, are all in good condition, and that the airplane is sumped and the fuel is good, no water nor any contaminants. So let's say that is done. And now we're going to go right into the before starting engine checklist. So pre-flight inspection is complete. Seatbelts adjust and lock. Brakes test and set. So in that case, the key assignments for the brakes, especially when it comes to the stick, I had to change that. So that way, when I assigned the brakes as a trigger button on my joystick, and then it was meant to set the parking brake right there as well. So I had to change that. So brakes, we pretend that we press both toes on the rudder pedals to apply the brakes. Make sure that's working. Circuit breakers, we're going to come down here, in which there's your circuit breakers over here. So there is nothing popped out. Electrical equipment, everything is off except for the beacon. Avionics is off. And then we can make sure the fuel selector valves on both. And then this is the fuel shut-off valve, in which basically it should be pushed in. So now we're going to go ahead and do the starting engine checklist. So I'm going to open the throttle to about 1/4 of an inch. So that's just very slightly. And we're going to make sure the mixture is idle cut off. So check these items. Then we're going to test the standby battery switch. Hold it down in the test position for about 10 seconds. I know. And plus, this is also pretty good as well, especially if you end up flying one of the planes that you've never flown before. They basically go pretty much in detail with the checklist as well. It's pretty amazing. Alright, so now standby battery is on. This will turn on the primary flight display. Engine indicating system, make sure there's no red X's on the display, in which in that case there isn't. Bus E bolts is showing 24.4, which is good. And bus bolts is showing less than 1.5, which is also good as well. And the battery S amps is also indicating a discharge. And then the standby battery annunciator is also, it is on. Now we're going to come up. Now the one thing that I find that's pretty annoying with this new simulator is how they have a pushback guy, like literally right next to the airplane right there, which obviously doesn't happen like that in real life, but it's the simulator. So we can request pushback, in which all you have to do is press Shift P on your keyboard, and basically the line guy will come to you and push the airplane back. That's probably what I'm going to do in this case, so that way I don't get in his way. I know. Just run over him. Yeah, I should, but I might as well do it right now anyways. And then when this guy is out of the way, then I can clear prop, and then we can go ahead and start the engine. Another cool feature with Flight Sim 2020 is that the traffic can be generated online, in which you can get traffic from FlightAware, in which the real life traffic that you see on FlightAware in real life, you can broadcast it on the sim, which is pretty cool. But yeah, and as you can see right there, there's some kind of bugs with the pushback, in which he's not even connecting the plane now. Holy crap. Looks like the guy literally just got sandwiched in my wings right there, but then it's fixed eventually. But yes, and as you can see, the pushback is starting. I'm going to probably push back just far enough so that way I can get closer to the yellow line. Right, yeah, the voice ATC would have been pretty good right there, in which the ATC feature in Flight Sim 2020 is actually no different from Flight Sim X and Prepared, in which I think there is a way that you can disable the ATC in Flight Sim 2020. I haven't looked into it yet, but then eventually I want to fly on Bat Sim on Flight Sim 2020, in which I was hoping to do that this week, but then unfortunately, when you connect vPilot, which is basically the software client for you to connect to BatSim, essentially the sim has experienced some low frame rates, in which that has to do with the simulator's issue with SimConnect, in which Microsoft is basically making a fix to make sure they get rid of this problem, so that way I can fly on BatSim on the brand new Flight Simulator 2020. But in the meantime, I'll be sticking to prepared when it comes to online flying on BatSim. So yeah, I say pushback is complete, making sure this guy is out of the way. Yeah, I know. Even in Flight Sim X and prepared, pushback is much faster than that. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure nobody's around. Pretend that we say clear prop. And now we're gonna go ahead and turn the master switch on. And then in this case, I'll just hide the yoke. Beacon light is on. And then we're going to prime the engine since the plane hasn't been flown at all today. So we're gonna go fuel pump, bring the mixture full rich. Normally the fuel flow gauge should move slightly to the right. Then we're gonna bring it all the way back. Fuel pump is off. And now we're gonna go ahead and start the engine. Alright, so the engine has been started. I'm just gonna go ahead and lean the mixture out just a bit, so that way we don't foul the spark plugs while taxiing. And now we go to the after starting engine checklist. So the throttle, usually in real life you would adjust it to about 1,000 RPM, so I'm just gonna bump up the power just a bit. Oil pressure is in the green. Let's move the checklist to the side, so that way it's not blocking the screen. And then we're showing positive charge with the M&S battery amps. Low bolts annunciator is off. And then we'll go ahead and turn the avionics on. Alright, and we verify that the flaps are up, which in that case it is. And then we'll just go ahead and turn on the G1000. And look at the amount of effort they put in just to reconstruct the airport diagram, which that to me is pretty awesome. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and grab the ATIS. And plus the pushback guy, he's probably going to stay where he's at. So he's probably not going to be a non-factor to me. So we'll put in Westchester ATIS on COM2. Then we'll do ground. And then we'll go ahead and throw in tower. 118.57. Yep. And then we'll throw in New York approach 120.8. And then we'll listen to the ATIS. As you can see, this was the ATIS for Westchester. Information Golf is current, and the winds are coming out from the south. So in that case, we're going to use runway 16 for departure. So this is the ATC feature for Flight Sim 2020, in which, in that case, we're going to request a west departure. But before I do that, I'm just going to taxi up to the ramp area, and then we'll call. So as you can see, I need to release the parking brakes first, which explains why the airplane is not moving. Yeah, it is the same guy right there, in which it's not the real life ATIS that you would expect. But if you were to go on VATSIM, for example, whoever's controlling the ATIS, you'll get a real life ATIS call, in which the same Robo Guy voice that you hear in real life, you actually hear it on the VATSIM network, which is pretty cool, but you don't get this feature in the new Flight Sim. Just gonna raise my seat up. But yeah, I was pretty bummed out with the bug in which when you try to connect on VATSIM with the new flight simulator, it actually kills your frame rates. But then again, what do you expect? This is a brand new simulator that just came out last week, so I'm just giving it a chance, in which eventually, a couple of months down the line, this will be a full-fledged simulator in which I'll eventually migrate to this simulator from prepared. Alright, so with that being said, we're going to stop right there. Even though you can't see the tower from this view in that case. So we'll go ahead and call ground.
Ground Cessna November 323 Juliet Romeo ready to taxi west departure with go. Cessna November 323 Juliet Romeo taxi to and hold short of runway 16 via taxiway Delta cross runway 29 Foxtrot Charlie. Contact tower on 118.575 when ready. Taxi to and hold short runway 16 via taxiway Delta cross runway 29 Foxtrot Charlie Cessna 3 Juliet Romeo.
But yeah, I'm running the settings on high. It's not even ultra settings, even though the game does stutter a little bit. I did extensive test flights in the sim right there, in which the game still runs pretty smooth to me in that case. And then also another thing that you may have noticed is that the taxiway letters at Westchester Airport is completely wrong, in which this isn't a deal breaker, but this is something that I would like for Microsoft to fix, in which eventually when you have third-party developers make AFCAT files, they'll eventually get the correct taxiways right there as well. And this is also another annoying thing. This is also another annoying thing about Flight Sim, and you have that same problem in Flight Sim X right there, is when you have vans running on the taxiway right there, which is pretty annoying. But yeah, ATC has cleared us to cross runway 11, and as you can see, this guy is going on to runway 11 like he doesn't care. But yeah, you can get traffic patterns with the default ATC option, in which that's good to hear. But yeah, but there's this one particular controller out of Westchester Airport, probably the laziest guy ever. Yeah, definitely. Alright, so now as you can see right there, this is taxiway Charlie out of Westchester, and we're going to make a left turn onto taxiway Lima. And you can see the amount of detail they put in, not only for this airport, but for all the airports that they worked on in the brand new flight simulator. It's as real as you can get. So now I'm going to make this left turn onto taxiway Lima. But yeah, you can see the slope in which we're going uphill. Same thing as you would see in real life. But the amount of detail they put in is pretty awesome. But yeah, definitely there are a bunch of flight sim add-on companies. They're already making add-ons for the brand new Flight Sim 2020. And the one that I'm looking forward to most is PMDG when they release their 737 and their 747 for Flight Sim 2020. That's going to be pretty awesome to look forward to. So that way, when that's fixed, and then when the V-pilot issue is fixed, it'll be pretty awesome to do some Batson flying in the 737 and the A320. But what the sim is also good for, it is great for VFR flying, nonetheless. I'm already thinking about doing a lot of bush flying in the brand new simulator just to take advantage of how great the scenery really is. So now, as you can see right there, we're going to go into the run-up pad where we will do our engine run-up checklist before we take off, which is how it's normally done in real life, just to make sure that the airplane's engine is in good condition. So the one thing I did forget is the taxi and the nav lights, so we'll turn that on. Just gotta check these items. And then we'll do the run up. Yeah, it is a Thrustmaster HOTAS X joystick. Another good joystick that you can also get is the Logitech Extreme 3D Pro. That's the joystick that I used to have for so many years. It's $30. It's the cheapest and probably the most reliable joystick that you can get. But in the meantime, we're going to do our run up. So we're going to set our parking brakes. Pilot and passenger seat backs are upright, seats and seatbelt secured. Want to make sure the door is closed and locked, which in that case it is. And then now we're going to go ahead and check the flight controls, in which I'm going to go outside. Hide the checklist out of the way so that way you can actually see the plane. Ailerons are working. There's your elevators. And there's your rudders. So flight controls check out. Altimeter has been set. Standby altimeter is set. We're going to climb to 1,500 feet as our selected altitude. Fuel quantity indicators, we're good on fuel. We're going to bring the mixture full rich. And then we're going to go fuel select the valve on both. Autopilot. The autopilot in this sim is actually very buggy, in which it actually tried to kill me a couple of times before live streaming this flight. Hopefully this is something that Microsoft would fix in their new patch that's coming out. But in the meantime, I'm just going to test the autopilot out. And even when you overpower the controls, the autopilot actually disengages by itself. So let me get rid of it. Alright, so trim is set for takeoff. And the parking brake is on. I'm going to advance the throttle to 1800 RPM. Alright, so we'll do a quick mag check. Alright, so right magneto is good. Check the left one. That's also good. Alright, so the mags are working. Vacuum gauge is in the green. That's for your backup attitude indicator. That's also working. Engine instruments. You have super strength if you're able to overpower this thing. Yeah, of course. Yeah, because in real life, when you try to test the autopilot, it actually doesn't disengage. That's also another difference with the sim. Engine indicators look good. Ammeters are showing 28. Nothing on the annunciator. And then we'll bring the power back to idle. And then we'll bring it back up to 1,000. A little too much. So now we're going to go ahead and switch over to tower. Nav frequency, we don't need to worry about that. No need to worry about FMS GPS flight plan. Transponder, I'm going to set this to ALT. CDI soft key, no need to worry about that. Cabin power 12 volt switch is off, flaps are up. Cabin windows, make sure the windows are closed and locked, which they are. And I'm going to go ahead and turn on the landing light and the strobes, and we will release the parking brakes, and then we will request our takeoff clearance. So Normal takeoff, flaps, throttle's full, we verify mixture is full rich, annunciators, nothing is shown, airspeed should come alive, we'll lift off at 55, climb at 74 knots, and that's about it. So now we're going to go into the ATC menu, and just want to double check to see if I have released the parking brake, which I did. So what we'll do is that we'll take off and we'll make a right turn direct to the Tappan Zee Bridge where we'll climb the 1,500 feet. So let's go ahead and call for takeoff.
Tower Cessna November Tree 23 Juliet Romeo at runway 16 ready for takeoff west departure. Cessna November Tree 23 Juliet Romeo cleared for takeoff runway 16 west departure approved. Cleared for takeoff runway 16 Cessna Tree Juliet Romeo.
All right, so we're clear for takeoff. Nobody's clear. Yeah, I know because, yeah, definitely I'm taking my time, mainly because the camera system is something I'm still working on. In the meantime, we're going to go ahead and add full power. Alright, airspeed's alive. And I'm going to be very, very gentle with the stick because the controls are extremely sensitive on the sim. And then we're going to rotate and we're airborne. So now we're going to climb out of VY. Yeah, I kind of like this call sign more, 323 Juliet Romeo, which resembles obviously my initials and also the month and the day of my birthday.
Romeo, continue for west departure. I will contact you next when you leave my airspace. Tower Cessna November Tree 23 Juliet Romeo continue for west departure.
Alright, so now we're going to make our right turn in which we're going to go direct to the Tappan Zee Bridge. Look at the detail that they put in right there. This is actually Purchase College right there. And as you can see, directly in front of you is the city of White Plains, which is coming right up. Now, I do want to warn you, like there's some bridges that are modeled kind of odd in this sim. For example, the Tappan Zee Bridge is one of them. But yeah, this is something that Microsoft is going to fix eventually when they release a patch for the product. So I'm just going to zoom out on the G1000 so that way I can at least see where I'm going. And then there's 1,500 feet. Gonna go ahead and level off. And then we'll cruise at around 2,200 RPM. But yeah, definitely trim is your best friend when you're flying in FS 2020. Because if you're not trimmed out, you're gonna have a really hard time maintaining altitude. I can guarantee you that. But yeah, this is the town of West Harrison, and then you have White Plains off to your 10 o'clock, and off to your 11 o'clock would be Interstate 287, in which by going westbound, we're going towards the Tappan Zee Bridge. So let me pull back on the power just a little. And we could put the yoke back. This is awesome. So as I mentioned before, in this case, I'm going to be flying the Hudson River exclusion. So there's no need for me to talk to ATC in real life, unless if I wanted to request a VFR transition route, then I would have to talk to ATC in order to get Bravo clearance. So technically, you can fly the city tour without Bravo clearance as long as you stay below the Bravo. So as you can see, this is the Tappan Zee Bridge right there, and as you can see, it's not modeled very well, in which you can barely see this part of the bridge. But then again, it's not 100% perfect. There's Curtin Point off to our 2 o'clock. So in the meantime, when we turn towards the Hudson River, I'm going to descend down to about 11 to 1200 feet. And then I'm going to self-announce my reporting points along the way, as if you're doing this flight in real life. I'm just going to pretend I'm monitoring New York approach. Yeah, this is the old Tappan Zee Bridge, which is kind of interesting that they went with the old Tappan Zee Bridge instead of the new one. And as you can see, this is the Hudson River. And I'm going to start a shallow turn to the left. So that way we want to stay over the west side of the river, which I call the Jersey side of the river. Reason why that is important is because whenever you do the Skyline route, if you're flying southbound, you have to stay on the west side of the river. In that case, it's going to be the Jersey one. Whereas if you're flying northbound up the river, then you have to stay on the east side of the Hudson River, in which in that case it would be the New York side. So now we're going to start our descent down to 1100 feet, in which, as I mentioned before, we're going to be flying the exclusion. So now we're coming down to 1100 feet. Yeah, I would figure that would be the case because they were developing Flight Simulator for about 3 to 4 years now, in which, yeah, the new Tappan Zee Bridge wasn't fully completed until about, I would guess, 2017, 2018 in that case. But then as you can see right there, we are flying southbound down the river, in which we're going to pass over the town of Yonkers pretty soon, which is right over here. But yeah, with the airplane properly trimmed out, it's pretty straightforward. So those are those Jersey cliffs right there. I just gotta watch that altitude. Again, like definitely pay attention to your altitude, because if the airplane's out of trim, then now you're gonna have to correct it. So now the first reference point that you would report would be Alpine Tower. I don't know if they modeled the tower in FS 2020, but I know they modeled it and prepared in Flight Sim X. Basically, this would be your first reporting point that you would have to report. So in that case, you would say, this is Cessna November 323 Juliet Romeo is over Alpine Tower heading southbound down the river. But yeah, this is where Alpine Tower would be located, which I don't think they probably modeled Alpine Tower in FS 2020, which is a shame. But again, it's not a deal breaker. And as you can see, off to your 10 o'clock, this would be Yonkers. And as you can see, the scenery is loading up as we progress along. Now, if you did this with a Bravo clearance, if you decided to do the transition route and you wanted clearance into the Bravo, at that point, New York Approach will hand you over to LaGuardia Tower, in which basically LaGuardia Tower will monitor you as you fly southbound down the river until you reach about towards the Intrepid, which I'll show you where it is as we progress along. And then afterwards, you would contact New York Tower to make sure that they're keeping an eye on you as well. So pretty much, we're going to continue southbound down the river, and eventually we will circle over the Statue of Liberty, and then we'll head towards Long Island. Oh yeah, of course it would use the real call signs in the area, in which I heard ExecJet on the radio before while playing Flight Sim 2020, in which they actually use real call signs, not only general aviation but also airliners as well. I even saw a Delta label while I was flying on Flight Sim 2020, which is pretty awesome. And then as you can see, we're coming up on the George Washington Bridge, and this is the Bronx off our left wing. Look at the amount of detail they put in. Even though there's some graphical bugs every now and then, but still, it's not a perfect simulator. I would like to appreciate Microsoft for all the hard work they put in making the simulator as real as it gets. So as you can see, this is the Bronx. The next reporting point would be the George Washington Bridge, which is the bridge directly in front of us. So at that point, you would self-announce on the Unicom to let other planes know that you're southbound down the Hudson River over the George Washington Bridge. And it's the busiest bridge pretty much in the entire country. So now we just passed the Bronx, and now we're entering Manhattan off our left wing, in which there's Spite and Dibble, Inwood, Manhattan. So this is Inwood, Manhattan, and then the Bronx right across the East River. This is awesome. This is a drone camera right there, which to me, I'm still trying to experiment it. So I'm pretty much not used to this drone camera feature in flights in 2020, but this also gives you another view of what the plane looks like if you had a drone connected to it. And as you can see, camera controls are still pretty buggy, so I gotta go back to the cockpit view in that case. Oh, there we are. So as you can see, passing over Washington Heights, this building that looks like the number 9 right here is where I went to high school. And as you can see, just by messing with the camera, I've already need to correct my altitude just a bit. And now this is Harlem, where I live. This is nice. Everything that you see right there modeled in complete detail. And now we're coming down towards Central Park. And now there is the Upper West Side. And then off to our right, if you're looking at New Jersey, Teterboro should be off our right wing somewhere. I think I probably might have passed it already. Yes, I am doing the actual Hudson tour. The only difference is I'm flying the exclusion route, where you don't have to talk to ATC in order to do the Hudson River tour. This is awesome. Definitely I want to show you just those outside views to see how it looks like up close and personal. So now I gotta watch where I'm at over the river, in which normally I'm supposed to stay on the Jersey side of the river. I kind of drifted off a bit right here. But then again, this is 59th Street, Midtown Manhattan. And the Intrepid is also another important reference point that you want to report, in which the Intrepid, we should be able to see it pretty soon. In fact, that is the Intrepid Air, Sea, and Space Museum. That's also another mandatory reference point for you to report, especially if you're going northbound up the river. Then we have 42nd Street over there, and then coming up on 34th Street. This is the Jacob Javits Convention Center, which is this big building right there. And then we also have the Penn Station Railway Yards. That is pretty awesome. That's why people fly from Westchester to Teterboro, in which just to get there it takes you like literally 15 minutes in the PC-12, rather than to spend like 2 hours in traffic going to Teterboro. It is. Every little detail. They did a spectacular They did a spectacular job right there. One of the Hudson River piers. And then at that point, if you were doing the VFR transition route, you would be talking to Newark Tower, in which if I was talking to Newark Tower, I would let them know that I'm going to circle over the Statue of Liberty, and then we'll continue southbound past the Verrazano Bridge. As you can see, this is the Freedom Tower. Again, it takes time for my video card to render them properly, which is why it's still loading. But yeah, this is pretty awesome. And then now there's a Statue of Liberty, in which you have Statue of Liberty right there, and also the Governor's Island as a reference point as well. So now I'm going to circle over the Statue of Liberty in that case. Well, in the sim, you don't get shot down, but if this were to happen in real life, there goes your certificate. And as you can see, this is the Statue of Liberty in its glory, in which I'm going to do a private pilot maneuver known as turns around the point. I would say it's probably the best place to do turns around the point in the sim. So now I'm going to circle over the Statue of Liberty so that way you can see the amount of detail they actually put in making this pretty awesome. At the same time, it's got to watch my altitude while doing this maneuver. This is absolutely incredible. Just like as it would be in real life. Now I just got to get a little closer to my point. Here's the outside view in case if you guys want to see it. Okay, I probably might need to roll the wings level just a bit so that way I can get the statue off my left wing. There we go. There it is. This is pretty awesome. So as you can see, I'm hand flying the airplane. I'm also controlling the camera at the same time, which is why I'm going back and forth looking at the Statue of Liberty and also looking at my altitude as well. This is pretty cool. And that completes our circle over the Statue of Liberty, in which now the next step is for me to go down towards the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. So this would be the last reference point that you would fly to when you're exiting out of the Hudson River as it empties into the Atlantic Ocean. Whereas if you're flying northbound up the river, this would be the first reference point that you would use to self-announce your intentions. So as you can see, there's Brooklyn off our left wing, and then towards our 2 o'clock, 1 to 2 o'clock, this is Staten Island. So we'll get a good shot of Coney Island and the Rockaways as we progress along. But yeah, there were like some things on OBS that were hidden by the browser, so I had to fix that. So that way you see the logo and also the chat. So now this is the Belt Parkway and the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. Yeah, I use OBS in general, in which that's the only streaming software that I'm most familiar with, in which I used to make streams in the past, but then I kind of stopped doing it mainly because the computer that I had wasn't that great. So as you can see, this is the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. And then now we're going to go towards Coney Island. Eventually, as we reach the Rockaways, we're going to have to descend down to below 500 feet, so that way we don't bust Kennedy's Class Bravo airspace. So where we are right now, since we left the exclusion, we're basically, the Class Bravo doesn't begin at 1,500 feet. Yeah, I'll look into Streamlabs right there. As you can see, this is Coney Island. But yeah, then again, this is my first time streaming, in which definitely I'll take these in mind, so that way the stream will be better as we progress along, in which pretty much this is still new to me, but this is a pretty damn good job. So as you can see, this is Coney Island. Wow. As you can see, those are the amusement parks that represent Coney Island. Got the Ferris wheel, got the Coney Island train station. It's awesome. Now it's time for me to skirt across the Rockaways, so that way I can begin my descent to around 300 to 400 feet. Yeah, that's what I heard going on in the absent forums, in which definitely, if I had the time, I wouldn't mind doing a around the world trip, in which I have done it. I have done it before a couple of times on FSX and P3D, but definitely a VFR trip around the world would be awesome. So now we're going to descend down to 400 feet. There goes the southern tip of Far Rockaway. And definitely I want to stay as close to the beach as possible, in case if the engine were to fail, Basically, if the engine were to fail right here, I only have about a matter of seconds to put the airplane down. But yeah, if you were to do the city tour coming out from any of the airports in Long Island, and if you were to go in the opposite direction, this is why you have to fly that low. And if you look over here towards your 10 o'clock, that's JFK. And definitely, if you pay close attention to the terminal area chart, usually you want to stay over the water but close to the shore. If you end up flying into the shore, then you would have busted Kennedy's class Bravo airspace, which at that point it starts at the surface. Can this game simulate emergencies like engine failure? Yes, it does, in which right before you click on ready to fly, you can program failures, in which you can program engine failures, engine fires, alternator failures, all that good stuff right there, in which there's a feature which allows you to arm the failure, in which once after a certain amount of time, whatever time you specify it, then whatever failure that you arm will be triggered. So if I were to set the engine were to fail in 10 minutes, then 10 minutes after the flight the engine would fail. It's just like how it is in Prepared and also in Flight Sim X as well. So as you can see, this is Far Rockaway. And I'm staying as close to the shore as possible. In the meantime, while I do that, I'm just going to set up the frequencies for Republic. Since I also have experience flying into Republic Airport, I pretty much know the frequencies by heart. So now in that case, the ATIS is 2665. And then ground will be 121.6, but I'll have to double check that as we progress along. And I'll probably put in 120.05 for approach. So that way I have all the frequencies set up beforehand. I think basically it only programs at a specific time that you set, in which it would be pretty cool to have random failures, in which there are certain add-ons in Prepare that allow you to do that with the PMDG aircraft as well. But yeah, this is one feature that I haven't tried out myself, but it would be pretty interesting to try it out. And as you can see, this is Kennedy Airport off our left wing. We're flying right under the final approach path of runway 4 left and 4 right. And as you can see, this is the Far Rockaway train station. This is awesome. Now, this is where Far Rockaway ends, and this is where Long Beach begins, in which now I'm going to make a right turn so that way I don't overfly Long Beach in order to stay cleared of the Kennedy's class Bravo. I say now at this point, it'll be a good time to listen to the ATIS for Farmingdale. So now we're out of New York City and we're now entering Long Island as we speak. So I just lost a little bit of altitude. Just going to correct that. Looks like my stream started to lag a bit right here. Now it's back to normal. It's probably on my end right there, in which I just saw the stream just froze a bit and now it's back to normal. Now we should be exiting the ring of the Class Bravo airspace where it starts at 500 feet. Once when we reach Jones Beach Monument, we can now climb up to 1,500 feet, in which at that point, basically over here, Class Bravo begins at 1,500 feet. So I would say about 1,300 feet would be a good altitude to start. This is pretty awesome. Alright, so now we are exiting that layer of the Class Bravo where it starts at 500 feet. And pretty soon, once we're about to reach Jones Beach right there, that's when we're going to climb up to 1,300 feet. I did fly over my house, in which, in that case, I actually did turns around a point over my house, and I was amazed that they were able to capture my house pretty nicely right there too, in which probably a couple of minutes ago, I don't know if you saw, down the Hudson River over Harlem, I zoomed in over this blue building, which is Harlem Hospital, and along these buildings were my house. So now we're going to climb up to 1,300 feet, since we're already out of that 500 foot layer of the Class Bravo. And now we're flying over Jones Beach, the place where there's an air show every Memorial Day, in which you'll have performances from aerobatic planes, also the Geico Skytypers, Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds. They perform here every year. So now at this point, we're getting close to Farmingdale, so now it'll be a good time for me to contact the tower. One thing I don't like in this Flight Sim 2020 with this ATC feature, and this is the same problem that I had in FSX and Prepared, is that they don't allow the usage of crosswind runways. So for example, since the wind is coming from 200 degrees, runway 19er would be the better choice, but for some reason they assign runway 14. There's a way to fix that, in which developers have modified the AFCAT files for the airport to activate crosswind runway, such that if that was the case, then ATC would tell you to land on runway 19er. In real life, if this was real life, then runway 19er would be the runway of choice. Plus, the weather engine could also use a little bit more work, in which basically it's not fully the real weather like you would get with active sky for prepared, in which this is something that also Microsoft can improve on in making the sim much better. So now I say it's a good time to contact Republic Tower. So we'll go to the nearest airport list, Republic, and we're going to request a full stop landing. Or actually tell you what, let's do one lap in the pattern.
Republic Tower, Cessna, November 323 Juliet Romeo is 900 miles southwest with Lima touch and go. Cessna, November 323 Juliet Romeo, Republic Tower. Make left traffic runway 14. Altimeter 29er, decimal 9er, wind 204 at 19er.
And you can see why this is one of the more annoying things with the ATC sim.
Enter left traffic runway 14 Cessna 3 Juliet Romeo.
So now I'm going to have to deal with a pretty strong crosswind for the approach. And then also another issue is, if you look closely at Republic, they want you to make a left traffic for runway 14, which would require me to overfly the airport just to do that, whereas making a right traffic for runway 14 makes more sense since I'm approaching the airport from the southwest, and it would make sense to make the right traffic for runway 14. Again, I'm not a big fan of the default ATC, in which I rather prefer to fly on Batson since it's more realistic, and plus it beats the default ATC any day. So now we're flying over the town of Massapequa, Long Island. And then Republic should be directly in front of us. As you can see, directly at our 12 o'clock, that is the airport. So as I said, I'll do a touch and go so that way you viewers can see what it's like to do a traffic pattern at Republic, and then after that is going to be a full stop. So the pattern altitude of Republic is 1,100 feet. So it's always going to be 1,000 feet above the airport elevation. So Republic Airport is 80 feet above mean sea level. So therefore we have to fly the pattern at 1,100 feet. So I'm going to do my descent down to 1,100 feet. I don't know why, for some reason I forgot to turn the master switch was off. Good thing I caught that. So now we're going to do our before landing checklist. Fuel selectables on both. Mixture is full rich. Landing light is on. Seat back is upright. Seatbelt is secured. Yeah, I have no idea how the hell did my master switch went off for some reason. Thanks, I do my best, you know. There's Route 110, which is this route right there. Good reference point to use if you're flying into Republic. So now we're on the right downwind for runway 14, which makes sense to do as opposed to overflying the field to do a left downwind and then you cut in front of the departures of runway 14. So as you can see, this is the right downwind for runway 14, and eventually ATC will give us our touch and go clearance. Usually at this point they should give it to you. Okay, so I just gotta pull back on the power just a bit. Need to slow the plane down. And then now we're gonna go ahead and turn base. We definitely really gotta take it easy on the controls, because even the slightest movement on the yoke, the plane will go crazy. So now we're on the right base for runway 14, and then after this touch and go, we will make left close traffic. Now I think now is a good time to put flaps 20, in fact, which I think I did not. I forgot to put my flaps, but now I got that. Oh yeah. It's hard as hell to fly the plane with a keyboard. In fact, tell you what, that's how I actually started playing flight sim a long time ago. But stereo cockpit, I gotta focus on landing the plane. All right, we're on the short final for runway 14. All right, and I'm going to smoothly idle the power out. Touchdown. Flaps up. Nice and easy on the rudders. And full power. And we rotate. And that's how the touch and go is done. So I will do one lap around the pattern at Farmingdale, and then after that is going to be a full stop where we will park the plane and conclude our stream. But yeah, you just gotta be very, very gentle with the controls. I even turned down the sensitivity. It still is pretty sensitive, regardless. But yeah, Republic in real life is the third busiest airport in the entire New York State. The amount of planes that they have in the pattern all at once is absolutely insane. In which, one time when I flew there in real life, basically I was number 8 in line for landing, which is absolutely insane. Now is a good time for me to start my crosswind turn. Yeah, you really can adjust the sensitivity on the keyboard. As what I said before, you're going to get the best sim experience if you fly with a joystick or with a yoke. So now we're on the left crosswind for runway 11. So around 050 heading is sufficient. And then we'll bring the power back to around 2200 RPM. And I say now is a good time to start my downwind turn. Yeah, this is another thing that I'll fix in the next stream. Oh yeah, the sound really did go out.
Juliet, Romeo, clear touch and go left traffic runway 14. Wind 204 at 19er. Clear touch and go runway 14 Cessna Tree, Juliet, Romeo.
Yeah, it is quiet right there because the way how I designed my mic is that I try to eliminate as much background noise as I can. Looks like there is a way on OBS to actually increase the sound for the end game as well, which this is an easy fix. Now I'm going to go ahead and turn bass. Yeah, I am aware of that right there, which I'll look into that at the end of the stream. Now, for some reason, I can't see the runway. Now, I might as well, whoa, I just overshot quite a lot. Okay, we'll go flaps 20. And flaps full. Alright, over the threshold pretty soon. And now smoothly power goes to idle. I'll just go right through the intersection of runway 1 and take the next taxiway off to my right. Thanks. Probably one of the best landings I've ever done in FS 2020. Now, ATC should say contact ground, but for some reason it's not going through. In the meantime, I'll just clean up the airplane, just clean the mixture out, put the flaps back up, and we can go ahead and kill the landing light and the strobes. And then I'll taxi into the echo ramp. Yeah, again, I'm not a big fan of the new ATC feature in which usually you would get call for ground, but I think I kind of know why. It's because I did not request a full stop with ATC, which is why I didn't go through. But yeah, definitely that's what BATSIM is for. Alright, so we're going to clear on the right, clear on the left. Nobody's coming in on 19er or 1. And then we'll just taxi into the ramp. And that's how we do the city tour. So yeah, so definitely this has been the very first stream of Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020, and I'm also looking forward to stream more flights, not only in Flight Sim 2020, but also in Lockheed Martin's Prepared Simulator as well, in which I'll be streaming a wide variety of flights, ranging from flying single engine props to flying the commercial airliners, in which the amount of flights that I can do while streaming is endless. And then also, there are a couple of things I just got to fix on, so that way on the very next stream, I'll make it better. So now we're gonna go all the way to the end of the echo ramp, and then we're gonna shut the airplane down, and then we will conclude the stream. Yeah, definitely. I'll keep that in mind. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and secure the airplane. So in that case, I'll just turn off all my lights, turn the avionics off. Mixture goes all the way out. Okay, key is out. You can go ahead and turn the master switch off, standby batteries off, and then we'll move the fuel select about to the left. And that is it. So with that being said, this concludes the end of the stream. Hope you guys have learned the New York Special Flight Rules Area Tour. And definitely we'll look forward to the next stream, in which we will be continuing to fly more props and eventually stream prepared, where we'll fly the jets. So with that being said, you can follow me on Twitch. My username is JoshRV96, and also on YouTube, JRV96, where I will be streaming flights, usually every weekend or so, mostly on Fridays and Sundays. And between now and the end of August, I'll be streaming more often since I'm pretty much free throughout that time. And then eventually, once we move on to September, then I will limit my streams to about twice a week or so. So that way you'll see not only Flight Sim 2020 content, but also P3D V5 content as well. So I hope you enjoy. If you like the stream, make sure you subscribe on Twitch, JRV96, subscribe on YouTube, JRV96. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.